We will call the special board meeting and budget hearing to order. Terry, if you could please call the roll.
Here.
Commissioner Nordine.
Here.
Commissioner Zur.
Here.
Commissioner Bika.
Here.
Commissioner Clements.
Here.
Commissioner Farrar. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. And if you could confirm that we're in compliance with our open meeting laws.
Yes, we are.
Those of you who are willing and able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have only one main item on our agenda tonight. That is the adoption of the budget. We'll first start with an update on the 22-23 budget. Abby Johnson.
Right. So in early October, the board adopted a preliminary budget, and since then, a few things have changed. Most of those changes came out of the October 14th aid certification. And so as a reminder, open enrollment in, open enrollment out, the voucher amount was finalized, computer aid, per pupil aid, state equalization aid, property tax revenue, and transportation are all of the things that are impacted as a result of that October 14th aid certification. In addition, we worked through some of the ESSER funds and we did some allocations and some updates to that as well. So tonight I'm asking that you would adopt the operating revenue budget. And so operating revenue is funds 10, 27, and 29. Those are the three that we lumped together. Obviously, Fund 27 is the special education fund and 29 is for other grants. We have a couple of grants that run through there. So you can see in the budget that you're being asked to adopt tonight for operating revenue, the total is 180.2 million. And you can see that there is some fluctuation in a couple of the categories, and that's in the local source and the state source. And I just want to remind you that the difference is like a scale. When local source or property taxes go up, that means our state aid is going down. In our case, in this adopted budget, the state aid is going up. And so that means our property taxes are going down because again, those two work like a scale. So those are the two biggest numbers that you can see there in the difference. And then in addition, the federal sources are up by $1.6 million. And that's because of ESSER funds and using more of that than what we used previously. So overall, in the budget adoption tonight, we're asking that the board approve the operating revenue budgets of an increase of 0.71%. When we look at the expenses, again, you can see that last year we spent 177.4 million, and this year we're projected to spend 180.8 million. It's a difference of 3.3 million. Obviously, the largest portion of that comes under the salary and benefits category. You remember that the board awarded a CPI increase, and then we made some health insurance changes. So that didn't surprise me that we're seeing the impact that we are in that category. So that's about a 3% increase over what was actually spent last year. And then overall, kind of the categories that shake out, it's a 1.91% increase in the operating expenses. So when we put it side by side, you can see that we're asking the board to formally adopt a deficit of $552,662. We know that that will change throughout the course of the year. This is our plan today, but we know that change throughout the course of the year. People leave, we get more students in, and so all of those are a moving target, and that's the best information we have at this point, and that's why we're asking the board to adopt that deficit. You can see last year, and we talked about this before, that there was a surplus of 1.5 million for the 21-22 year. So the net over the 2 years is about a $1 million increase to our fund balance. We always like to look at how will a dollar be spent in the 22-23 year. Ironically, it's the same as it was in 21-22. So 75 cents of each dollar for salary and benefits, 17 cents on contracted services. You know, think about our transportation, our substitutes. Those are probably the two biggest and most common. About a penny for mandated private school costs, 4 cents on supplies, 2 cents on insurance, debt, and other. That would be like property insurance, liability insurance. And then we spend a penny on our facility improvements and our capital improvement plan. We like to also share where will that put us fund balance wise. And so you can see on October 3rd, I think it was, that we talked about the surplus from 21-22 of 1.5 million. That gave us 27.8% of our projected fund balance ending compared to Fund 10 expenditures. And then with this adopted deficit of the 552, that would put us at 27.4. So we would expect it to change a little bit. Again, we're a little bit, under where the auditor recommendation is, but there were times even prior to 18-19 that we were like in that 19%. So I think we're well within reason. And so just wanted to share that as well. That's where we predict that we will be. We just like to summarize again, each fund, what was the revised budget from 21-22? What was our actuals we ended with, and what's the budget for this year? A couple of fluctuations to talk about. The general fund is down about $2 million in revenue. And so one of the things that I researched a little bit was really in that additional aid that we got last year. So we got about 1.5 million from Governor Evers that was not part of the budget, and that was awarded later in the year. I think it was December. And this year we know that we've gotten $1 million, again, outside of the revenue limit. So that's 500,000 right there of the 2 million. And then some of it's just the way that things are shaking out as far as grants and things like that. Then when we look at the food service fund, there was a decrease of about 2 million there. In 21-22, we were not expecting some additional federal funds that came through as related to the pandemic. And so that was kind of a one-time thing. We don't expect to receive those this year. So that's why you're seeing, that significant decrease in Fund 50 as well. All the other funds stayed pretty constant. When we look at the expenses by fund, again, not a lot of differences between all of the funds. Again, you'll see a little bit of difference in Fund 50 because expenses were up last year, due to more of that being able to do the meals quickly and a lot more disposable items. We're trying to get back to away from some of that. So you'll see a little bit of decrease there. The Employee Benefit Trust Fund, a decrease there as well. That really comes out of the fact that we separated the active and the retiree plans as of July 1st. So some of the implicit rate subsidy is that number is down. And so that's why you see that difference there as well. Otherwise, not a lot of changes in the expenses by. The most important thing that we've been talking about is our tax levy and what does that look like? So you can see in 2022, we levied 60.7 million. This year, 60.8 million. The equalized value was 702. It's going to 633. It's a 69-cent decrease. And you can see overall that the levy increase is $124,933. So not much of an impact at all. Again, one of the things that we'd been talking about was trying to keep the tax levy flat. We know that the mill rate has taken a decrease because of the major increase that we got in the equalized value. And that's not normal. We don't normally get that. So, but that is really what's causing that significant decrease there. Then we wanted to give an update on ESSER funds. That's a question that we're getting a lot as we're doing referendum presentations, as well as it's just a good opportunity for us to summarize what have we gotten and how have we used it. So ESSER 1 funds had to be spent by September 30th of 2022. There was a district allocation and a private school allocation. So the total allocation was just over 1.5 million. Of that, 52,000 was private schools. And before, in the July through September 30th, the private school still had about $14,901 available to spend. The district had spent all of their share of that. Some of the things that we used it on was some virtual and hybrid teachers. We had hotspots that we paid for students and staff. We had our Meals on Yellow Wheels. We had backpacks to protect our devices that we went one-to-one. And then we had some additional wireless access equipment, and that was all spent out of ESSER 1. Then we moved on to ESSER 2, and that is available until September of 2023. So we have all of this fiscal year yet. And so you can see in 2021, we spent about 1.2 million. 2022, we spent about 3.3 million, and that leaves just over $1 million in this budget. And so we have allocated that $1 million. We have about 92,000 left. And we'll use that throughout the year because again, we're going to make sure that we spend that all by September of 23. But just so that everybody knows, we used it to pay for summer school the last 2 summers. We've used it for after school programming, really to help with learning loss and being able to support our students. We also hired some additional staff and interventionists, again, trying to get that learning and help kids catch up and meet them where they're at. Again, under contracted services, we had hotspots, we did professional development, some additional programming, and then transportation for summer school as well. In supplies, textbooks and PPE. In the capital area, we did a sound system at one of our buildings so that they could have large group instruction. Their system was failing, and so that was we were able to reallocate some ESSER funds for that. And then we paid for devices and our lease payments out of ESSER. That was also allowed. So that's ESSER 2. And then ESSER 3, we are just beginning to spend ESSER 3 in this fiscal year. It's actually available to the district until September of 2024. So you see the bulk of this year's budget is really in the salary and benefits area. We used it to pay for summer school, additional interventionists, social workers, counselors, and instructional coaches. Again, trying to really focus on how do we help our kids recover from the pandemic and really support that learning loss and their mental well-being. In our contracted services category, again, more opportunities to learn. And maybe do some credit recovery pieces. Obviously, summer schools, we have a partner with a lot of agencies in our community to be able to offer a wide variety of programming for our students, and then some supplies related to summer school as well. So at this point, we anticipate we'll have about $5 million of ESSER 3 funds to use in our 23-24 budget that we will be adopting a year from now. And again, as I said earlier, this is, what we think is going to happen. And we know as the course of the year goes on that things change. And so our goal at the end of the year is not to leave any grant dollars on the table. So we may shift things between different grants to make sure that we take advantage of all of the federal dollars that we were awarded. And that happened last year as well. So that's just part of our normal process. And so, a year from now, when we're looking at this, it might look a little bit different based upon how the year plays out. The other thing we like to take the opportunity to do at budget adoption time is look at our referendum spending. So in 2016, the board and our community went to referendum and our community supported us in an operating referendum. The referendums for the next 15 years and will be done in 2031. And so every year, so far we have levied an additional 5.86 million, and we'd like to share and give an update on how we're spending this. So the information on this slide really captures the first 5 years of the referendum, and you've seen that before. This is the new slide. We thought we'd break it into 5-year chunks, so that way then it would be easy to read. So 21-22 actual, you can see we used just over 3 million in salary and fringes. We used 578,000 on technology and safety and security, and then we had our debt payment. In this year's budget, we plan to use about 1.8 million for salary and benefits, about 1.9 million for technology updates, and then our debt payment on that deferred maintenance that we issued the debt for just over 2.1. So do you have any questions or anything that you'd like to discuss?
Thank you for the update. And especially I'm going to say thank you for the tightness of this year's budget. I know the goal is always, plus or minus 1%, and this was within 1/3 of 1% on that. And that's really strong work, and it makes it easy to see the direction that we're going forward. So I want to say thank you for that. And at this time, I'd open it up to any other comments or questions from board members or student rep. Go ahead, Commissioner Lyons.
I also would give you accolades for being, so close to the mark of hitting the budget with the actuals this year. I mean, just a fantastic job. And the clarity of your presentation was great. At the last meeting, I was specifically looking for the year-over-year changes in salary and benefits, and what you captured tonight. I picked it up immediately. So great job. I think it's a great budget, and nice job this year managing everything.
Dr. Beacon.
Thank you for all the hours of behind the scenes work to get to tonight. And as others have said, that the budget is tight. It shows responsible spending by the district. And thank you for that healthy fund balance.
I'd just like to echo my thanks. You know, when you make it accessible to an English PhD, you know you've done your job very well.
I try to keep it. It's very complicated. Mike and I have been working together a lot and, you know, educating him as well, and he's getting it pretty good. So I have to keep it simple though, because it's very complicated.
One other piece I want to add is just putting in that we had a lot of discussion as a board as we went to the CPI increase for the year and recognizing that, you know, by putting the full 4.7% and the level increase that was going to put, you know, additional costs into our budget. And the board felt very strongly that, hey, we need to do this for our teachers. We need to support them and make sure that we're, you know, putting as much money in their pocket as we can. And then kind of looking at you and saying, so make it work. And I think, you know, you really, that I think is, I guess I should have added this in my first part, but to come in that close together with, you know, with the $500,000 and the fact that we're working hard to make sure that our teachers are, you know, paid as well as we can in a tough economic situation. That's really impressive. So I wanted to make sure that was out in the open as well, that, you know, even with our commitment to adding cost, finding ways to make sure that we can support that is critical.
You're looking for a motion to approve.
Well, I do need to go through, we normally have a public hearing at this time and we open it to anyone who would wish to speak. However, we do not have anyone signed up to speak either in person or virtually. So we can now move on to the adoption of the budget, and I would hear a motion to adopt the 2022-2023 ECASD budget.
I would motion to approve the 22-23 school district budget. Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, when you're ready, Terry, if you could conduct a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Commissioner Nordine?
Yes.
Commissioner Zur?
Yes.
Commissioner Bika? Commissioner Clements?
Yes.
Commissioner Farrar?
Yes.
The budget is approved. At this time, I would hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Farrar and Lyons. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworthy